It is. It's crazy how much good salespeople can teach you. I think a big plus was we were surrounded by winners.
Yeah.
That was. It's like you're the sum of the five people you hang out with every single day. Even for that matter, if you don't hang out, like the conversations you have with them, right? They go a long way. And the fact that we were surrounded by winners, that just helped so much. Like there was not a single day where I felt like I don't want to go out there and win.
Yeah.
Even though I was going through something super serious, but I didn't care enough about that because I knew like this part of my day is gonna be freaking fantastic and gonna kill it and it's gonna be amazing.
Right.
But yeah, that the whole surrounding yourself with the right people is super super big.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Today we're sitting down with Fez. Fez is a longtime friend of mine for like what 3-4 years now.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So I first met him doing sales. I had a sales job a few years back, and it taught me a lot. And Fez was one of those just very influential people. I remember in particular we had an amazing car ride. We used to drive up to Wisconsin to sell, which was insane. And during that car ride, Fez and I had probably one of my favorite conversations I've ever had with a coworker. And just gave me so much inspiration and just great sound bites. And I was like, I have to have you on the podcast. This is going to be amazing. So anyway, here's Fez. Fez has an amazing story, very interesting life and story and journey, and so many cool things he's working on right now. So just so excited to have you on and talk to you more about that.
The pleasure is mine, man. Love being here, of course. And talking to you anytime is always a good conversation, a fun one. So yeah, I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So Fez, for everyone who doesn't know you,
Yeah.
can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, where
Okay.
you started out, how you got to here, and then I'll kind of break it up in
Cool.
there as we go.
Gotcha. So there's a lot to unravel there. Where do you want me to start? Like my journey in from India to America, America, college to Chicago, like
Perfect. Yeah,
where
that.
so all of it?
Yeah, let's do all of
Okay.
it.
One more question was, should I do this in my Indian accent or American accent?
So it's actually you saying that is actually hilarious to me because
Uh,
so at the end of each podcast, I
yeah.
end with a 1 minute segment of asking 5 random questions and seeing if you can
Okay.
answer all of them in a minute.
Okay.
And I always have Chat GPT generate them for me.
Okay.
It just makes it
Okay.
more
Okay.
interesting. It's
Uh-huh.
kind of out of the box. So I had ChatGPT generate it for me, and I said,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm having my Indian friend on the podcast today, and he knows a lot about the film industry, and he knows a lot about just mindset and motivation and blah 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 blah." And it generated the most racist questions of all time. And it cracked me up, and I was like, I don't think I can ask these on air. So I had it regenerate them and was like, forget that he's Indian, and it generated just
No.
normal questions, and it was so funny. So anyway, it's funny that you say that. Do it
Yeah.
however you want.
I mean, I'm of course comfortable either way. Whatever helps people understand what I'm saying better.
I don't think they'll have a problem either way.
Okay. Perfect. So let's just I'm fine talking this way.
Perfect.
So yeah, to begin with, I started my journey in America back in 2014, 2015, a year after I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes,
Okay.
which was, shook my world, of course. But, I was game. I was, willing to see where life takes me and try my hand at soccer because I'm a big soccer guy, right? I wanted to go pro. And yeah, MLS seemed amazing to me at the time. I was looking into high schools here, and I came across a bunch, and then there was one that I picked that I loved, which was St. Andrews in Barrington, Rhode Island.
Okay.
So Rhode Island was where I started my journey.
Wow.
And yeah, I got a little bit of scholarship money to play there. We did amazing. We were the first ones to win back-to-back championships in their history, in their NEPSAC tournaments. And then yeah, I met some amazing people that I'm here, amazing friends with till this day. We have
That's
like a
great.
group chat. We talk like almost every day. We have a lot of fun. And then once I was closer to graduating there, I was looking at colleges, and then I got some scholarship money to play in University of Maine. So that's where I went next. And that was an amazing experience too. Coming from like a big city like Mumbai and being around so many people, it was awesome to transition to a much quieter place. Where we didn't have more than I think 3 or 4 thousand people.
Oh wow.
So it was a really small town for Kent,
Yeah.
but it was amazing. I loved it. It was extremely cold though, compared
Yeah.
to India's total opposite. But yeah, I was there for but my bachelor's, and I think closer to my junior, I realized that soccer can be my career, which was a hard pill to swallow, if I must say. And then after that, I was like, yeah, the other thing that does come to me naturally or what I like is business. And, at the time I was looking into what do I want to do in business. And of course, you don't get the ideas right away, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so I was trying my hand at trying to open up a t-shirt business,
Okay.
which didn't go anywhere, of course. And then eventually, I was like, okay, what do I want to do after college? Because I did like America a lot. I didn't want to go back to India.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, one thing I did understand is I need a good foundation, right? I need to learn from somebody that's qualified to give me advice. And one thing that kept coming back to my mind again and again was sales, and not people. Reason being, one thing I did understand from my degree was that if I mastered sales or even marketing for that matter, I would know exactly, everything about a business from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Because sales, you have to
You
know
do.
everything.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, instead of relying on somebody to give me all that expertise and knowledge, I'm gonna go out there and get my own. And that's when I came across where we met, our previous job.
Yep.
And yeah, understood that it's sales and marketing. You get to talk to people face to face, which was a challenge for me at first
Yeah.
because I was introverted. I wasn't the most outgoing person,
Yeah.
and I wanted to dive in the line of fire right away and just take it head on and face my fears. So I got into that, which gave me an amazing foundation, where I learned a lot about life. It made a lot of sense to me as to why things were happening so far in my life the way they were,
Mm.
and how I can change that and how I can mold my future and all those things. And then eventually, I ended up switching and doing something that speaks naturally to me and I like more, which was a bigger business like the one I'm working in right now, and managing that venue and learning more about that business and hospitality and things like that, so I can do what I want to do eventually.
That's
So
so
that's
cool.
like a little,
Yeah. Yeah.
not
No, that's a good
unraveling
in
a
a
lot, but
nutshell.
like yeah, in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So just to backtrack a little bit, where in India did you grow up and at what age did you come to America and what was that like? Like, did you just know you were going to come to America for college your whole life or was that a decision you made as
Great
you got
question.
older?
So I was originally born in Mumbai, and then when I was 10, I forced my parents to send me to a boarding school.
Okay. How'd you do that?
So I don't know. I was just crazy about soccer, right?
Okay.
Since a young age, since I started kicking a ball when I was like 4 or 5, whenever.
Okay.
But yeah, my elder brother was in a boarding school that had a soccer program. So whenever we went to visit him, I was just so hooked. And I'm like, I want to be here. I don't want to go back home. I want to live here now. But of course, my parents kept fighting me back on it. Somehow they agreed to let me go. And it was in like a different city, which is like about like 4 to 5 hours away in Pune.
Okay.
So yeah, I was there for like about 8 years.
Wow.
And yeah, I was playing soccer. I did good for myself. I got the chance to go to Blackburn Rovers, which was part of the Premier League at the time
Okay.
and Championship. But yeah, I got to go. I got recruited by their manager and some of the players that were visiting, and they watched me play a final, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I went to Blackburn Rovers, played there for like a couple weeks, and then yeah, after that, I was on a good I would graph. I would say, I was going somewhere in soccer. It seemed like. However, a year later, I got diagnosed with diabetes, and
Mm.
that was a whole. That's another like full on story.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, when that happened, I was quite shaken. I didn't know the impact of it right away, till like years to come. But regardless, I was like, it doesn't matter what it is. I'm gonna yet pursue soccer. That's my dream. That's my goal. And at the time, I met this coach in India who was sending some of his students and players back in Mumbai to America and go play in universities. So I met them. I met his team, and they helped me narrow down high schools
Okay.
that I could potentially go to, and MLS was something I was really looking forward to. So then I came here. And then yeah, when I first came, I think the cultural shock was yes, that was a big one. The biggest one was the education piece,
Mm.
right? Back home in India, I would say like I was not the best student. I was not an A student at all, and I don't think people cared enough. Like in the sense, like the system didn't care enough for the education piece.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I was doing good in soccer, but I'd never studied really. And then when I came here, it was like I'm just gonna wing it. I didn't know how serious education is in America,
Oh, yeah.
right? So I didn't know like you have to keep your grades up to in order for you to play soccer,
Mhm.
right? So basically, when I came in, I was not doing my homework. I was not doing my essays, my assignments. I wasn't doing anything, right? And my teacher was like, "Hey, you need to do something. Your grade point average is dropping." And I was like, "What grade point average? What the hell is that?" I couldn't hear that, right? Uh, and then there was one time my coach came up to me and was like, "Hey, listen, your grade point average is below 3.2. If it is going to remain there for like another week, you can't play." So
Oh.
it's like, oh shoot. So you're saying that I really gotta study? It's like, yes. Shoot, I didn't sign up for this.
So now I came
Yes.
here.
So I think that was the bigger one.
Yeah.
And then also I think just in general, I would say, what was another cultural shock? Apart from like the accent and meeting so many different people from all walks of life, and then meeting people internationally.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
I remember we had kids. That was also like a boarding school, kind of.
Okay.
St.
Okay.
Andrews, it was like a private, really good institute, one of the best out there. But yeah, we had people from like China, Egypt, Montenegro,
Wow.
Cape Verde, Zambia, Tanzania. So we
Wow.
had like people from all over,
Yeah.
and a lot of them played soccer. You know, so it was really cool to learn more about different cultures. I remember there was a time, I don't know if you watched the movie Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum.
I have
No.
not. No.
So K3G is like this big movie in India.
Okay.
It's like a classic from like the 90s, and it's super emotional and has everything to it. And I remember there was this afternoon we made them watch, like the soccer boys, they were watching that movie. And I remember like just turning towards like one of the emotional scenes. I just turned to see like if they're yet sleeping. I thought they would be like dozing off, like what the hell is this?
Uh huh.
But they're generally crying. It was so emotional. One of the best. I'll never forget that moment. It's like so ingrained in my memory. Just turned around and everybody's like breaking down and crying and they're like emotional. And I'm like, wow. And I understood something about um, America in general, in the sense that I sense love here is kind of different. Like I feel Indians are more in tune with the unconditional type of love,
Hmm.
where they're more guided by love than anything else. Like they'll do anything for love.
Okay. Yeah.
As compared to America, was slightly different. Like yeah, there is some um, there are some people who can love unconditionally, but then the way they show it to the person is kind of different. It's
Hmm.
not the same. And then yeah, there are so many other things too. Like I think back home in India, your parents take care of majority of your education. You don't even have to think. You don't have to
Hmm.
blink. But then here it's different where by the time you're 18, parents are like, okay, now you gotta take your loans and you gotta go to college and do your thing
Yeah.
and be an adult, and it's not the same. Like that was alien to me.
Oh, wow.
Like if my parents did that to me, I would be so hurt emotionally. Just like, oh, you guys don't love me. You're not gonna do this for me. But I understand why in America they do it. It's not because of the love part, but it's just generally that's how it's ingrained in the culture for a boy to become a man and go from being protected and guided to now starting to take up more responsibility and evolve as a
Yeah.
human. So I see the differences. There are like some little details here and there that I picked up that were like kind of different.
That's fascinating.
So yeah, those are like the few things that right off the bat I could notice. But yeah, apart from that, not much. Yeah, but it
Wow.
was all fun.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah,
So have you always loved soccer? Was that
yeah,
just that's always just been kind of ingrained
yeah.
then?
Ever since I kicked the ball, I don't know what it is. Yeah, ever since I was like 4 or 5, I started kicking a ball. I was crazy about it. That's all I wanted to do. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't have a fun childhood in the sense, like, all my friends or like my, ex girlfriends, and they used to keep bringing, oh, did you watch that cartoon growing up? And I was like, no. It's like SpongeBob? No. It's like Pokemon? Yeah, kind of. But yeah, I was one of those kids that, didn't want to sit in my house and watch TV. I just
Yeah.
wanted to keep kicking a ball.
Yeah.
And I remember in where I lived, there was like this small, we used to call it the watchman's cabin,
Okay.
because that's where like the night guard or whoever used to stay,
Oh.
right? And there was like a small opening, like a small window. So that was like my target practice. So the whole
Wow.
day I used to keep going back and forth with the night guard. He's like, what are you doing? You're just kicking at my house,
The poor guy.
I know, poor guy. But yeah, that was like my target practice. And
Wow.
even like just playing with kids in my my society, my building, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I loved doing that. I didn't want to stay in my house and watch TV. It was like kind of boring to me.
Yeah.
The only time I did though was I don't know if you remember the game Need for Speed Underground 2.
Okay.
So
Yep.
that was the game that was my second love, which is like cars, kind of.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what really got me into cars, and then the
Okay.
Fast and Furious movies and all of that. So
Yeah.
those are some things growing up I was really fascinated by, and I didn't care for like a lot of these cartoons and all of that, so I didn't watch them.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So that kind of leads me to my next thing. I've met a lot of people who have immigrated to the US,
yeah,
and a lot of times they learn English as like a second language growing
yeah,
up.
hmm,
And the main way they learn it is from American cartoons like
hmm,
SpongeBob and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah.
How did you learn English?
So I want to say in India. I believe sometimes in the 80s, 90s, or whenever. I could be totally wrong of the timeline. But at some point, they realized like the global language is English.
Hmm.
So naturally, everybody, all the schools and colleges transitioned to English.
Okay.
And plus, I want to say, like, I could be wrong on this, so don't quote me on this, but I think a lot of the British influence we had, because before we were like a British colony, right?
Hmm.
So there were people who educated themselves in English
Okay.
back even then. Like we got our freedom in like 1947. So even before that, I want to say like there were always people around that were educating themselves on how to speak like multiple languages. Always.
Okay.
I can't think really of a time frame where they did not speak as another language. So when somebody asked me like how to learn it, I want to say like yeah, growing up, I don't know many places that don't have schools that don't teach in English. Like I want to say
Interesting.
like almost all schools in India teach in English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, leaving like some of the rural areas where even now there's a big push where they're trying to educate them in English. Maybe not like the most eloquent or like the most fluent, but
Hmm.
they're trying. And yeah, a lot of them understand and they can read English, but they can't. They're not like the best at speaking it. But yeah, they understand. So I think like for years now, people, like for me example, I grew up with it. I grew up speaking Hindi, I grew up speaking Urdu, and I grew up speaking English.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you're trilingual then, technically.
Trilingual. I understand parts of other languages like Marathi, and then there's Gujarati. Yeah, I can kind of understand those. Marathi more than Gujarati, but yeah, and I can speak a little bit of Marathi too.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so impressive.
Yeah, in India that's like super common because you have
Wow.
almost every different region has like a different language.
Okay.
So, if you have friends and yeah, we're pretty diverse. I feel like there's like what 200, 300 languages in India.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure like there's that many, right? And
Yeah.
India's a small place, even though there's a lot of people. So, I think the transfer of knowledge of like languages is it happens all the time. It's common.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, here we're just kind of starting that in our education system where there's Spanish and English.
Even French, no?
In French, yes,
Yeah.
um, but as far as just where a lot of the curriculum has shifted to, like
Mm-hmm.
where you have to learn to,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of always been just like a choice. Like you could learn French or
Yeah.
Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
and that was at a certain point. But now there's been, because of just our population shift, there's
Mm-hmm.
been a cultural shift in the schools towards like teaching more Spanish
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to use it more, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. So, which has just been really interesting that we're kind of adopting that, but so many other countries have that. Like when
Mm-hmm.
we're in Italy, a lot of them know English because that's just like their second
Yeah.
language. You have to
Yeah.
know English.
There's also it's quite surprising. Recently I was in India and I went down to Chennai. Um, and while I was there, I realized like like in Thailand there's like tuk-tuks.
Mm-hmm.
In India you have rickshaws,
Mm,
right? Auto rickshaws is what we call them.
okay.
And then like the auto rickshaw driver could speak in English and in whatever language like people speak in Chennai. I don't know what exactly it is, but he could speak both of those, but he could not speak Hindi, and Hindi is like the
Wow.
more common knowledge, a
Yeah.
common language in India,
Yeah.
which is like such a cultural shock for me. Like, oh wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's also parts like that, where
Wow.
they can't speak like the most common language in India, but they can speak like in English. I want to say like English is almost the top three most common languages in India.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. So, okay. So shifting back towards your time here, um, back when I met you doing sales, just for context, round it out, what was a little bit of what you did in sales and give me like your top 5 things you learned at that job.
Okay.
Also, I'm
So
just going to tweak.
yeah, sure.
Just want to make sure it's facing you.
Okay.
All right, you're
Perfect.
good.
Yeah. So if I have to describe what we did, basically it was face-to-face sales, right? Where we went into these stores, or what's a better word for these stores?
Yeah, like a shopping. Well, no, not, yeah, it's a store like Target, Sam's Club,
We can take names,
Mariano's.
right?
Sure, yeah,
Okay,
that's fine.
cool. So yeah, we went into like high-end stores like Target, Mariano, Sam's Club, now even Costco. And we basically sold AT&T products on behalf of AT&T as like a third-party vendor. So that's what we did. So anytime people go into Target stores and they're interrupted while they're shopping, we're like, "Hey, how you doing? We're doing a promotion. Who do you have for your phone service?" So we were one of those, right?
Yep.
But yeah, but that's an art though. I
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely loved it. You
Yeah.
know, and a few things I learned there. There's so many. I would not be able to pick a top five, but I'll just mention like few that come right out the bat to my mind. Number one is definitely sales as a transfer of energy, right?
Yeah.
That was a big, big one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People are not really um, buying the product as much as they're buying you,
Yeah.
right? The person selling the product. So that was a big, big one. Um, Another thing from sales, I think, wow, I don't know. There's so many, man. It's hard just to think of. But yeah, I think transfer of energy, um, and then the 8 great work habits. I think
Mm-hmm.
those were key.
Do you still
Something that
remember
we learned.
those? I cannot remember them.
No, I'll have to actually sit pen to paper,
Yeah.
and if I write the acronym down, then it will come to my
Then you could
mind.
get it. Yep. Yep.
But in general, I remember they really built a good foundation
Yeah.
for me, and everything I started doing after that. I think that, and then also one big quote that stuck with me till date was, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care."
Mm.
Right? If I'm saying it
Yeah.
right, people, yeah, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yes,
Yeah.
correct. So, yeah, that was a big one. How you're making people feel at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, people never forget what you say. They'll never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah.
They don't care what you say, but they'll never forget how you feel. That was a big one.
Yeah.
I think if anything, that's one thing I am super conscious of making sure that every person I talk to, they feel right. The moment my energy is off, they'll recognize it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one. So those are like a few things. I'll have to
Yeah. No, you're
actually
good. You don't
think.
have to come
Yeah,
up with
yeah, yeah,
exactly five.
yeah,
Yeah. No, that job was very influential for me. I think I
What stood
learned
out
more
for
about
you?
myself
Yeah,
than I learned about, um, I learned sales, and I think I
yeah.
learned sales very, very well. Um, Anything that you take a course on, for sales, you learned it doing that job, but you learned it firsthand.
What stood out for
Um,
you, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure, yeah. So what stood out for me? So there was one thing I say on this podcast to people all the time, and I'll ask you about this later.
Sure.
Is the bigger the why, the bigger the try. That was like the quote, the soundbite that stuck in my head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people used to say that all the time during our like team meetings and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that always stood out to me because I think that's so true, right? If I have
Mm-hmm.
something I'm working towards, if I have someone I'm
Yeah.
working towards, right? Someone
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to support or help or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden now I find this crazy energy that I never had. I can do things that I never thought I could
Yeah.
do. And you're overcoming these challenges and these obstacles, and
Mm-hmm.
you get out of bed every morning and you're
Mm-hmm.
motivated,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that I don't think you can just pick up, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I've heard some amazing people talk about it. The Navy SEALs in particular,
Yeah.
when they go through Hell Week, the people I heard a podcast recently where they were talking about this. A great
David
podcast.
Goggins.
No, but David Goggins is amazing.
Yeah.
But there was a guy talking about Hell Week, and he said when you make it out, there's people that are they didn't make it, right. They made it halfway, whatever, almost all the way. They didn't make it, and you ask them about what happened, what went wrong, or whatever, and they always say, "Oh, it was." I just really, it wasn't my day. I wasn't feeling it. This happened to me. My toenail got bent back. I don't know, whatever, right? Something
Mm.
about them. And then you ask the people who did make it, what happened? What happened out there? Why'd you make it? And they will always tell you a story about someone else.
Mm-hmm.
They themselves are the last thing on their mind. They'll talk about, their parents, their family, their
Mm-hmm.
kids, their wife, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and they'll tell you about that.
Yeah.
And that's just amazing to me, but it rings true to what we learned in sales.
Yeah.
Um, and just that motivation piece. The other big thing with sales was the transfer of energy that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So the higher your energy is, the
Mm-hmm.
higher the other person's energy is.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember multiple days where I was sick, I had the flu, I had whatever, and I was working that job.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go in and I used to drink an unhealthy amount of caffeine doing that job,
Yeah.
but it worked so well because you would just get yourself like so hyped up,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd power off the other person that you were in the store with or whatever. Or
Yeah.
some days you were alone, but if you had enough caffeine in your system, I found, and you were like
Mm-hmm.
really hyped, you could transfer that energy to anyone.
Yeah.
And I just remember so many people that were having horrible days.
Yes.
Horrible days. There were people that had just gone through a breakup, things like that. And they were
Yeah.
just really down and not wanting to talk to you at all.
Yep.
And you would learn about their entire life story
Mm-hmm.
while helping them get a phone. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like the weirdest thing to me, because I was like, this is not what I'm here for at all, right? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
here to be emotional support. And yet I can fill that role for this person.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
help them in a very real way that's helpful to them while also helping them in a material way, which will
Mm-hmm.
come back to benefit me. And that was probably the last thing that I'll touch on is that true sales and good salespeople are there to help. They're
Yeah.
not there thinking about their paycheck. They're not there thinking about how much money they're going
Yeah.
to walk home with after that sale. They don't see you as a dollar sign.
Mm-hmm.
They see you as a person that they can help.
Yeah.
And that will ring true in any industry that people are in
Mm-hmm.
sales. You know, if I go to you and I say, hey, you needed this phone or whatever, you don't really need it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can help you in a
Mm-hmm.
different way,
Mm-hmm.
you know, maybe that ends up in a sale for me.
Yeah.
And you now are a loyal
Yeah.
customer and you'll come back and you'll say, hey, I've got my, you know, other cousins or whatever, and they want phones. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to bring
Yeah.
them to you.
Yeah.
And that just rings true in every industry. It's been amazing to
Yeah.
me to
It
watch
is.
that
It is. It's
play out.
crazy how much good salespeople can teach you. I think a big plus was we were surrounded by winners.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
that was. It's like, you're the sum of the five people you hang out with every single day.
Yeah.
Even for that matter, if you don't hang out, like the conversations you have with them, right? They go a long way. And the fact that we were surrounded by winners, that just helped so much. Like
Yeah.
there was not a single day where I felt like I don't want to go out there and win.
Yeah.
Even though I was going through something super serious, but I didn't care enough about that because I knew like this part of my day is gonna be freaking fantastic, and I'm gonna kill it, and it's gonna be amazing.
Right.
But yeah, that the whole surrounding yourself with the right people is super super big. I guess, yeah, leading by example.
Oh,
That was a
yeah.
big one.
That was
That
a big
was a
one.
big one. Um, because they used to keep teaching us, right? People pick up like 95% of your bad habits and maybe like 50% of your good ones, or
Yeah.
10% of your good ones, or something like that, which is so true, right?
It is.
Um, I was always trying to compete and be the manager at the time, right?
Yeah.
Like I was trying to dress up and show up for the role I really want to be in that position, right?
Yeah.
So that was like so good too. It was so cool. I yet do that today. I'll show up to any place, any event, thinking of, okay, how do I want to show up
Yeah.
beforehand, right? Like, do I want to be like a CEO? Do I want to be like an employee? Do I want to be there just to like mess around and be foolish? Or like, just give it like self-awareness,
Yeah.
increasing that self-awareness around that piece. So important. But yeah.
Yeah. Being intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many, like, you could just list off, which is
Oh
why,
my
like,
gosh. Yeah.
to narrow it down. But in overall, if I have to sum it all, like, what is one thing that it really gave me, or I took away from it, is I feel super secure as a human, in the sense, like, I don't mind being misunderstood. I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. I'm not trying to people please. I'm not trying to be someone I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm okay. People can misunderstand things. They can judge me the way they want to. If they matter to me, they'll actually be curious and they'll
Yeah.
come to me and ask me,
Yeah.
right? But it gave me a lot of security in myself. Like, I know what I bring to the table. I don't need to compete and show and prove and do all these crazy things. So I feel, yeah, super comfortable um, after everything I took away from that experience. And that's such a big thing. I think that's one of the biggest things people can accomplish um, at our ages.
Yeah.
Just being comfortable and being secure as humans.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I love the way you said that too, because we we live in a very digital age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Social media and everything. And that what you're saying rings very true to me, because I've had something recently, very recently, with some friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Friends I used to be close to and I was hanging out with all the time and thought everything was great, right? And then they just kind of do certain things that are very selfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they're dishonest or whatever.
Yeah.
And these traits start to kind of reveal themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this
Mm-hmm.
person's like this. I never saw
Mm-hmm.
this coming. Um, like, how was I ever friends with them? And people go through that with dating too, right?
Yeah.
And all these different things. And it comes down to you kind of hit a crossroads mentally
Mm-hmm.
when you're in that position. You're like, do I change and I accept everything that they stand for and what
Mhm.
they say and do because I just don't want to lose a friend
Mhm.
and I just want to be, a people pleaser?
Mhm.
Or do I make the bold and confident choice, which is harder,
Mhm.
and I be myself and I
Yeah.
say, you know what, if they're worthy of me, right,
Mhm.
and having some self-worth, if they're worthy of me, they'll come back, right?
Yeah.
They'll make the right choice. They'll apologize. They'll come
Yeah.
back around. And if not, I made the right choice by
Yeah.
not being close and friends with them and everything else.
Yeah.
And I think that's super hard these days more than before because it used to be like, right, maybe I don't like you. I just wouldn't talk to you anymore. I wouldn't see you. I wouldn't see you around. I just don't pick up the phone when you call,
Mhm.
right? But now I still see you online, right? I still am going to know what you're going through and like all the great things you're doing and whatever. And people hype themselves up on social media and it's
Yeah.
so fake and it's so artificial.
Mhm.
And so it just becomes this like toxic, cesspool
Yeah.
of people online. So being that you have such a great perspective on it, and I love that, what would your advice be to people on social media who are maybe going through a breakup or a whatever, a friendship breakup? What would be your advice? How would you handle that? How do you
I
handle
I
that?
guess where does security come from, right? A lot of it comes from being honest with yourself, looking yourself in the mirror, and telling yourself that hey, you gave your best. Because at the end of the day, you can lie to a million people. You can lie to the person that you were with, but you can't lie to yourself. And if you are lying to yourself and convincing of the mental dialogue you have with yourself, that oh no, it was not me, it was her, or whatever it is, you can only go so far.
Yeah.
It will come to haunt you eventually. You can't lie to yourself after a certain point. You
Yeah.
can do it temporarily, but not permanently. So, what really matters is you looking at the mirror, being 100% honest, and knowing that you gave your 110%. And something I learned, through some of the people we worked with is that you're 100% responsible for 50% of every relationship you have in your life, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
Super
committing
interesting.
to 100% to that 50% is super, super important. So as long as you laid everything out there, you gave your best, there should be no doubt in your mind that you feel uh like oh, I could have done this, I could have done that, I could have done a million other things. So I think that's where security comes from. So that's one, when like breakups or whatever, if you
Yeah.
want to go down that path. But in general, in social media, like, use it the way you want to. Like, some people are smart, they'll be secure as humans, but they'll show like the opposite of that. They'll do like not opposite, but they'll do things that sell, but they're a
Hmm.
totally different person in person.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I tend to see that more often than ever now. Like people are trying to be something on social media because they know it works and it sells. Like you'll see a lot of these people. Like what's a common one now? Ashton Hall. Like let's just say example, right?
Hmm.
He is right now the talk of the town. Everybody's talking about him, and there's both like positive media attention and there's negative. Like the positives, like oh he's such a jacked out guy and like he works out so much. On the negative side, there's things like oh he just almost got evicted from the apartment he's shooting in and things like that. Both work in his favor. You're
Hmm.
talking about the same individual,
Yep.
right? But I'm sure if you sat down and you spoke to him, he knows exactly what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
If anything, both could be planted by him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Which is
So
amazing.
exactly. So I feel like marketing and things have like evolved,
Hmm.
and people have kind of understood what to feed
Yeah.
the people who are just sitting on social media all day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that
So
that quote. I forget who it's by, but it was. I think it was a fighter. I want to say it was a fighter.
sorry.
No, you're good. No worries. But it was love me or hate me. At least you still bought a ticket,
Yeah,
and that's
it's the
very
Floyd
true.
Mayweather thing, right?
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather does this on purpose,
Yep.
where he will try pissing you off and say things that are like cocky and things, so you hate him.
Yep.
But that hate is yet getting you to buy tickets and pay him for what he's doing. So
Yeah.
uh, you can call it a ploy or whatever you want to, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's what thing. But yeah, I think security is super super important. and knowing that you gave your best. Uh, One thing, I believe there are two lives, right? And this is another thing I learned for where we worked at is there's two phases, or not two phases, there are two lives a man or a woman lives. One is where they're living, the second one is where they realize they only have what? And
Mm.
they've got to commit and do what they want to. I think with this job, uh, once I came to Chicago and I was doing this, I think that's what happened to me. It made me realize that I have only one life, and I really got to dial in and do things that help me and, get to where I want to be. Um, it would be easy. Like, I remember having this conversation with somebody. It would be easy for me to turn back. And if somebody asked me, why didn't soccer work out? Why didn't you become pro and stuff? I could easily say, oh, diabetes. And, I couldn't um, do it because of it. And, it like no professional is playing right now. But in my heart, I know that that's a lie in the sense that, yes, it's going to make things difficult for me.
Mhm.
But I can't turn around and say like I was the most disciplined,
Mm.
right? Diabetes is not drastic as long as it's managed correctly, right? When I look back, I remember, I was yet going to the parties.
Yep.
No, I was yet staying out late when I should have been hitting the bed. We're
Yeah.
getting ready for the next day because I knew I had training. I was yet, doing all the things that I'm not supposed to and expecting a result that I shouldn't be expecting.
Yeah.
And that's where the honesty is supposed to, come in. Like, you got to be honest with yourself. So I don't entirely blame um, diabetes. If anything, I blame myself. I could have managed it better. If I would have managed it better and done everything that I was supposed to, and then I didn't make it pro or something, totally different conversation.
Yeah.
But the fact that, I had the talent, I had everything in my corner that I needed, and then I was not the most disciplined and everything, I can't turn around and say that it was diabetes. It was a lot to do with me and my
Yeah.
choices, right?
Hmm.
So making peace with those. At the time, I remember I blamed everything on diabetes because I don't know if I was ready to take the blame on me,
Yeah.
right? But eventually, I realized that yeah, it was, I gotta accept this. It was me, and which is why, I wake up every single morning knowing that I have only one life. So I got to do everything I can to, live it to the fullest and not look back at something and be like, I half-assed it.
Yeah.
I didn't give my 100%. So I think that's like a big, big thing that changed for me too.
Yeah. Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I love that you talk about ownership, right? Taking ownership of
Yep.
your wins and your fails,
Uh-huh.
right? We're always happy to be like, if something turns out well, I did that, you
Yeah.
know, and just, brag about it and whatever, right? And then when something goes wrong, we're like, oh, that definitely had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And it's very human, right, to do. But to have that maturity, that both mental and emotional maturity to say, no, I did that. And yeah, that was my fault. I did that wrong. And I'm going to own it and I'm
Yep.
going to learn from it and I'm going to do better. Um, that's so inspiring. So, kind of shifting off of that, right? I want to talk to you about mindset,
Sure.
about your mindset, about your kind of what gets you through the day, right? So we
Mhm.
talked a little bit about like, that getting out of bed in the morning, right? What gets you out of bed?
Mhm.
What drives you? Um, so I want to hear, like, for you in particular, what drives you? What's kind of your what's your why?
Um, so if I have to really think, like it keeps changing. I feel like
Yeah.
with age, your priorities shift, your understanding of, everything shifts, which is kind of what, I've branched off. So my podcast too, which I'll touch up a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah,
later, but
definitely. I want to give it a
it's
plug.
based upon that, right? I feel like over time everything changes. And in this moment, my why is, I would say, my family, like my parents and my brother, right? Taking up that responsibility of being the next person to, um, take care of them. Um, Also take care of myself and my health, right?
Yeah.
Do things or, work towards something that sets me on the path to support them and their goals and their dreams and give back.
Mhm.
I think that's the biggest one on my priorities. The second one is also thinking about long term the impact I want to have on the world or what I
Mm.
leave behind. I mean, realistically, people are not gonna remember me after I'm gone in 100 years and 1,000 years or whatever. But that's not. I mean, yeah, if somebody achieves an impact in life, like say Marcus Aurelius or something like that,
Mhm.
or even thousands years later,
Right.
people are here talking about it. Amazing.
Yeah.
But if not, in this one life, I definitely want to give back and have the impact I can on people and helping them. That's something I've always stuck by, time and time again. Is I want to give back more than I'm capable of, but in my own small capacity at that given time. So yeah, that's something I want to stay true to and keep doing. So those are like my big two whys. Um, but yeah, family for sure. In this moment in time, like it's so funny. I don't know if it's just being an Indian kid, where all of a sudden when you're like in your late 20s, you realize like, oh shit, you have a family, and you should give back, and
Yeah.
it's just something that naturally shifts where you want to give back the world because you have a lot of gratitude for your parents because they're at this age you think about what you're going through
Mhm.
and you are kind of comparing it to what your parents did at the same age
Yeah.
and the turmoil and the sacrifices they made with their careers and goals to put me as a little child, a little baby, in a situation where I can optimize and do the best in,
Yeah.
right? So there's like a whole profound gratitude that just fills you up to
Yeah.
where you want to give back. So yeah, I think I'm going through that phase. Some people get it earlier, some people get it late, but at some point or the other, you do get it. So yeah, I want to give my parents the mansions, the Maybachs, whatever they want. And if anything, I just want to realize at some point in their life that, yeah, whatever they were working super hard for their son to be and ensure that, he's successful, he's not broke, he's living a good life, he's happy, all those things have been achieved. I
Yeah.
think that's where I'm getting to or where I want to go with this.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they're assured and, they're secure. Like, okay, yeah, this kid is good. We don't have to worry. So yeah, those are like my two big whys in this moment, I think.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I love your articulation of giving back, right? People always say, "Oh, I want to give back," but to really know what you're giving back and
Yeah.
why and
Yeah.
who you're doing that for. And yeah, I've started to realize that when I was in high school, when I was in middle school, I had no idea of what my parents did for me,
Mhm.
right? I was in high school, and it wasn't until I really just moved out on my own
Mhm.
that it started to hit, and I was like, "Oh wow,
Mhm.
like okay, so this is what they were talking about when they
Mhm.
were, saying like you have to take ownership of
Mhm.
your life and things." And then you start going through life as an adult, and you
Yep.
start unpacking these things, right? And then getting married was another huge,
Yeah.
milestone for me. And when that happened, I was like, I can't even believe, like where my parents have come from here. And
Yeah.
you just start understanding them better.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a interesting thing is when you're in high school, middle school. I don't know if you ever had this, but I was a very rebellious child. I was not like the really good kid.
Yeah.
My sister was. I was not. And so I was just kind of like always giving my parents hell for
Mhm.
everything. And I'm sure I'm going to have a kid that does that to me now just
Mhm.
because of that. But I never understood, and I didn't understand my parents or where they were coming from or why they
Yeah.
would say the things they say. And now you start to understand it as you get
Yeah.
older. And you're like, wow, I really want to just like make up for everything I did. And
Uh,
also just be there to help them out because
yeah.
you actually care now in a way that you never knew you could.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you do want to give back. You
Yeah.
want to help them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And family is so important, and you just start to realize how important family
It
is.
is. It's yeah. It's everything. And what's funny is I was not a rebellious kid, but I was a stubborn kid.
Oh,
Like I remember having arguments like just the way I forced my parents to send me to a boarding school, right? Just even that tells you that I'm stubborn. Like if I really want something, I'm like, no, I want to do this. Why are you stopping me? Right. But there's always been times too that, they're like, well, those are flames, that's fire. Don't put your finger in it, you get burnt. Like, well, no, it makes sense. It looks cool. Let me try it. And then I put my hand in the fire and I'm like, okay, I see what you're saying. So there's
Yeah.
those moments too, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, I would not say I was ever rebellious as such, but I was definitely stubborn. Till date, I'm yet stubborn. Till date. But what I do appreciate about my parents is they yet somehow make peace of letting me put my finger in the fire so I can learn for myself.
That's really good.
That I feel a lot of people are scared of that for their child, and I think that's something um, my parents have always found a way to, okay, like let him go down that path if he wants to, and make his mistake. And that's anything one could ask for, because
Yeah.
I feel your biggest lessons you've learned in life always come through those moments. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You learn from your failures more than anything.
yeah.
That's very mature though, as a parent for them to let you do
I
that
know,
because
I
that's
know.
that's not easy.
I guess on the other hand, like yeah, a lot of decisions that I've been stubborn with and I've taken have kind of worked out for me too. So
Mhm.
even though I've been away from them a lot of their life, growing up, because I was in boarding school and I came to America, so I didn't spend as much time with them.
Mm.
So for them to allow me to do this, I think also goes in hand with it is the fact that a lot of things that I did end up doing helped me more than they took away from me. So like they have a certain confidence that, okay, this kid has a certain intuition and understanding that he could make this move. He's feeling
Yeah.
confident, so let him do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. In some cases they know I'm wrong, but yeah, like he'll learn for himself. So
Right.
which is big. So yeah,
Yeah. That's amazing.
thanks to them.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So do your parents live in India still, or are
Yeah,
they
yeah.
here yet?
So they live there, of course.
Okay.
What they do, their background and everything, their industry is back home.
Okay.
Unfortunately, but yeah. So they're based out in Mumbai.
Okay.
My dad's originally from a place in Lucknow, which is Uttar Pradesh. That would be northeast of India.
Okay.
Not northeast. Northeast, like we not exactly northeast, but yeah, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. And then my mom's from Mumbai as
Okay.
well. So yeah, they met. A whole different love story, but yeah. So they met in Bombay, and then they got married.
Okay.
But yeah, so they live back home. And yeah, I went to boarding school, and then when I was 18, 17, I came to America. But now they keep visiting.
Okay.
They keep coming. They find some excuses to keep coming in.
Yeah.
And spending some time with me, and it's a lot of fun. Like I enjoy it so much now. Like
Yeah.
after what I've realized in the last few years with parents and giving back, like I'm so glad that they get the chance to come in and spend some time with me, and then keep going back and coming back. So it's good.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. I'm so happy for you guys. So okay, so I want to talk to you more about mindset things, right?
Yeah.
What are some one of the biggest things I've learned as running my own company over
Mhm.
years is systems, right? Having
Mhm.
systems in place. It's the only way to scale a company. It's the
Yeah.
only way to be successful, really,
Mhm.
without pulling your hair out.
Yeah.
You can force it, but
Mhm.
it's probably not going to go well. What I know you don't work for yourself per se,
Mhm.
right? But you have a very entrepreneurial mindset.
Mhm.
What are some systems that you have in place for yourself to help yourself succeed and find success in life, even though your outlook is going to be a little bit different than mine because you don't own a company?
Mhm.
What are some systems you have?
Um,
It can be life systems, it can be work systems, whatever.
there's that's like a layered question, but
Yeah.
if I have to touch on a few things, I think understanding the concept of law of averages
Okay.
has been one of the biggest systems that always works for me. Like you need to go through a certain number of reps to get to your goal.
Yeah.
Um, like we used to have like talking to 80 people closing two, right? So
Yeah.
something like that. I feel eventually you do get there, but you got to understand in whatever you're doing, what are your law of averages? Like how many times you need to attempt something to get the outcome you're trying to. That's a big one. What else? I think, yeah, there's one more in my mind. I just lost it. But yeah, law of averages, and then inspect what you expect too. I think that's a big one because quite often, working with people or even working for yourself, sometimes um, we understand the world the way we understand it, right?
Yep.
And sometimes that's limiting. So really inspecting what is it that you're expecting, let it be from a person or let it be from yourself. Like, are you capable of doing it? Like skills, awareness, decision. If it's a skill gap, if it's an awareness gap, or it's a decision that you're making. So really
Mm.
being, self-aware in that sense, super, super key. So those two things always work. What else? Systems.
How would you?
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you about that last one, skill gap, awareness gap, or I forget the third one you just
Oh,
said.
decision.
Decision.
Yeah.
How? Give me an example of
Okay, sure.
utilizing that.
So, let me think. Um, let's say, I'm trying to do a podcast, for example. I'm just gonna run with it. I'm just
Sure.
gonna try making it make sense. So let's say I'm doing a podcast. I don't know much about it. And I'm expecting, like, I post my first one and then I'm expecting like millions of views,
Uh,
right? So instead of looking if it's realistic and all of that, I'm looking at skills, I'm looking at awareness, and I'm looking at my decision, right? Is it a skill gap, right? So I have to really look into, is it skills that I lack in posting out this podcast? Not really. I got a team in place. I got me in place. I've got the product. Is it an awareness thing? Where am I aware that there is an issue with me in the first place to begin with? My process that I'm following through, is there an issue with that? Am I aware of
sure.
it?
Okay.
If there's, a lack in my process, or is it a decision? Like I'm just posting these out, like I know, like, there's an awareness gap and I'm yet deciding to yet post it out and I'm not fixing it.
Mm.
Right. I don't know if that makes sense entirely, but yeah, like, if it's like, say, an awareness gap, and I'm yet deciding like to post it out, then that's a mistake I'm making. Like I need to look at the awareness gap, where in my process do I lack, fix that piece, and then post things out. But if I'm like, I know there's an awareness gap and I'm yet deciding to put it out, that's on me. Like I'm messing up.
Yeah.
I should decide not to. So you're always like, questioning yourself, like what type of gap is it? It's easier to do it on another person, or like judge, somebody you're working with.
Yeah.
If it's, it's easier to do it that way. But when it comes to you, like there's a few different ways you can see it. But yeah, that's like just a rough example. I don't
Yeah.
know if that made sense, but
Yeah. No, that does. That does. That's interesting. So just kind of having, it sounds like more of a system in place for self-awareness
yeah,
so that
yeah,
you can accurately like do a rundown with yourself at the end of the day.
yeah.
I don't know if you do this. I started doing this. I bought a journal on
Mm-hmm.
Amazon. They're like $2.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't journal like, oh, I did this today. I ate a bagel or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, Instead, at the end of the day, when I can, I don't
Mm-hmm.
always do it, but I try to make a habit of writing down a breakdown of my day for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily actions, but where I was mentally. Like, this is where I could have done better. This is what I did.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I would want to do,
Mm-hmm.
And you're out of the situation, right? It's the end of your day. You're not thinking
Mm-hmm.
about doing these things anymore. So you can accurately say, like, hey, like I should have edited this video or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, ate lunch and went on my phone and wasted an hour.
Okay.
And you can do
This is
that at the end of the day.
procrastination.
Exactly,
Okay.
right? And so now you look at that at the end of the day and you're like, okay, so that's what I need to improve on. And then the next day in the morning, when I do like a morning meeting with myself, which is kind of
Uh-huh.
hilarious. But when I do that, I basically do a breakdown of my previous day
Uh-huh.
and I go, okay, so these are the recurring things that
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing or I've been lacking in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're gonna attack that today. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna go on my phone, and I'll
Yeah.
be very self aware.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden you start to build these habits,
Mhm.
and your habits become your subconscious actions.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me just like how much of a shift that's had
Yeah.
on my life, or even just your mindset with, other people. Like
Mhm.
anytime that you're dealing with toxic people, you go,
Yeah.
okay, do I really want to be emotionally invested in this?
Mhm.
Is that worth it to me and my,
Mhm.
my mental capacity
Mhm.
to put that much towards that?
Mhm.
Or am I better off just doing something else, letting them be, and
Yeah.
then, come back? And it's amazing. In so many
It
facets of your
is. It
life,
is.
it has an impact
You
on you.
know, what you're saying rings a bell. I don't know if you follow this guy, Alex Hormozy.
I've heard of him.
He's phenomenal. Watch their podcast.
Okay.
So there's one thing he says that hit me, like it just slapped me across my face, which is the magic lies in the work you're avoiding.
Oh,
It's so true,
that's
right?
so good.
So that's something I'm always, telling myself whenever
Yeah.
I'm procrastinating. Because listen, I would not say like even the top person must have gaps. They must
Oh,
have
yeah.
slip ups.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. We're
Right.
all human. There are some days we don't want to do it and we yet do things. We push ourselves to the limit. And then there are some days we do things and we don't do things and we're like okay with it, right? So I guess the toughest part for a lot of people is just the change. You know, how drastically are you willing to change to really get an outcome that you want, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, in hindsight, what I was talking about is the magic lies in the work you're not doing is just so profound, right? It's always that. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, each and every one of us, even every person who's listening to this, knows exactly something that they're not doing
Yep.
that they could, and that might just be the magic they're looking for,
Yeah.
right? At any given point, I've always caught myself. So I think recently I've tried making myself more aware of what are those things that I'm avoiding
Mm.
that could help me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or where the magic lies, or could lie. I'm giving that a shot. It may be something I know, it may be something I won't, but giving it a shot. And also giving her time to change and, adapt and do those things.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one. But yeah, a lot of it, like, the journaling piece, I've kind of become it's become like second nature almost, where I'm quite aware of everything I'm doing on a daily basis and what's different and what's not. I'm not necessarily tracking, but there was a time I used to kind of just to see what's changed, what's different, but I don't do it as much anymore. Um, because on the other hand, I'm also focusing on improving that 1%, just that 1% every single day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And compounding that over time. So yeah, I don't necessarily do the journaling, but yeah, those things, like I'm always aware of,
Yeah.
if anything.
That's great. You said two things in there that I want to recap. They were amazing. So one is giving yourself time to change,
Yeah.
and being patient with yourself
Yeah.
is huge, right?
Yeah.
I've I know that because I've not done that so many
Mm-hmm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
I've been like, okay, so for instance, like I'm gonna start posting on Instagram, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get this growth or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and you start posting and you do it for like 2 days and nobody's watching your content and it's
Mm-hmm.
not interesting to anyone and you're kind of burning out mentally because you didn't really prepare for it. You just
Mm-hmm.
kind of out of the blue were like, I'm just going to start posting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So just as an example, and you have this big ambition and you just start chipping away at it,
Yeah.
and then it goes nowhere, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes this. I'm a failure, and you're
Mm-hmm.
done. And it's that meme you see of the guy hacking away underground and
Yeah.
there's all the diamonds and he decides
Yeah.
to walk away right before he hits them. Yeah, and it's always that, and I've
Yeah.
run into that so many times in my life.
Yep.
But if you're patient with yourself, if
Mm-hmm.
you allow yourself to fail
Mm-hmm.
and you forgive yourself and go, okay, it's okay,
Yep.
I'm going to get back up and I'm going to do this again. And I'm just going
Mm-hmm.
to keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
And you take those baby steps, all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
now you find those diamonds, right?
Exactly. It's like one of those things I heard a while ago, which is like to master any skill, you need to give it about 10,000 hours.
Hmm.
And it's it's valid. I think yes. Once you give any skill that you're doing, that you might be new to you or it might be second nature to you, doesn't matter. As long as you give your 10,000 hours to it, you'll be a master at it.
Wow,
So you
that's
really,
interesting.
yeah. So it doesn't matter what the skill is. So it could be as something as simple as just posting, or it could
Yeah,
be, just get like shooting a podcast,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
First time you do it is gonna take you weeks and months.
yep,
Then by the time it's second nature, it's gonna take you 2 days,
yeah.
right? Some people really have that type of a conversion rate, so they really put in those 10,000 hours of what they're doing. Like, say for example, two big funny podcasts that I watch, right, is Schultz Flagrant,
Okay,
and then the other one is Brilliant Idiots, which is also Schultz and Charlemagne.
okay.
And Brilliant Idiots started like back in like 2015, 16. Nobody watched
Oh
it,
wow.
right? But back and like the content is yet similar.
Mm-hmm.
But it took a lot of patience. It took them the 10,000 hours in both their journeys to get there and
Yeah,
meet somewhere, and make it, like the magic is there like after the 10,000 hours in it. So yeah, I want to say there's a lot of other people like that too out there.
yeah.
So really giving like 10,000 hours to a certain skill is how you're going to master it,
That's
truly.
really
Yeah.
interesting. Wow, I've never heard that. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I've always think back to this one. Hit me really really well. Was the which I think it's 3 months total that you have to do something every single day for 3 months,
Hmm.
and if you keep with that, you now form a subconscious habit.
Yeah.
And it's obviously easier to learn bad
Hmm.
habits than good habits.
Yeah.
Um, but if you want to recorrect any of those, so like let's say I want to get in shape, right?
Hmm.
It's not going to happen overnight. I'll
Hmm.
see growth in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's just natural. But if I really want to transform who I am and how I am
Hmm.
and being a better athlete or better at working out or whatever,
Hmm.
you go once a day for 3 months.
Hmm.
And at the end of the 3 months, you can't even picture your life without it.
Yep.
And so you'll just keep doing it and you have to do it because, like, if somebody's like, hey, let's go out to the bar or something, you're like, no, no,
Hmm.
no, I got to go to the gym first. And it
Yeah.
just happens because it's part
Yeah.
of your
Yeah.
day-to-day life.
I guess more importantly, it's the outcome you get out of that habit is
Mm,
what will keep you there,
yeah.
right? Let's say if I'm doing something I don't like doing, right, for 3 months, trying to make it a habit,
Yeah.
good chance. I don't know, like, maybe it will work, maybe it won't. But I think after 3 months, I'll make peace with it. I won't enjoy it as much. But if I really like the outcome, like, say, for example, a workout, right?
Hmm.
If I really like the way I feel right after a workout, like, I'm pumped, I'm energized, blood's flowing, everything's good, then I'll try, like, yeah, the consistency part is the I want to say the tough part. This is
Yeah.
the consistency, the making sure that you're doing your workouts and going to the gym every single day. But if I do that for 3 months, eventually that's gonna be a habit for sure,
Yeah.
right? There's more likely to be a consistent habit than something that I don't like doing, but I know I should be doing.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, yeah, I'll have to try that the 3 month thing. I'll
Yeah.
have to see. I'll have to push something I don't like for 3 months.
You do that and I'll try 10,000 hours and we'll
Yes,
see. Maybe we'll
for
just
sure.
be amazing at the
I
end of
guess
it.
I guess we're both heading in the same direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think if you give 10,000 hours to the gym, of course you're gonna get results of some
Right.
sort,
Yeah.
right?
You better.
Exactly. At that point. But yeah, but yeah, that's that.
That's impressive. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about where you are now,
Okay.
um, and what you do. Put in a plug for
Okay.
what you do.
So right now I'm one of the managers at this awesome venue called the Matrix Club out in Naperville, Illinois. Um, and it's an amazing space, man. What a vision. It has like 8 different amenities. It's got art gallery, it's got 2 dance studios, it's got a live theater where people are even watching movies apart from doing Broadway
Oh
style
wow,
theater, which is really cool. And then we have this massive ballroom which can fit about like 2,500 people for like concerts.
that's
And then
amazing.
you can do weddings for like 1,000 people. Then there's also smaller rooms for like 200 people weddings. And then you have like a sound lab where I'm doing my podcasts.
Yep.
And then there's a bunch of bands that keep coming in and recording. Then we have this nice think tank room where a lot of corporates are coming in to like book for meetings. And then some people are doing baby showers, a multi-purpose room. Then we
Sure.
got a yoga studio,
Oh my gosh.
and then we got a restaurant, which is
Wow.
also amazing. It has like a nice stage. It has this LED screen. It has like a dining space and then a lounge. It's called the Matrix Room Restaurant and Mix Lounge.
What
So it's
what
really
kind
cool.
of restaurant is it?
So it's a global cuisine. So it's
Oh.
global fusion. The chef is, he's acclaimed. He's been on the Chop series. If you
Oh, wow. Okay.
seen that,
Mm-hmm.
his name is Alonso Beckford. Yeah, he's phenomenal. He cooks really well. Even our we have two different kitchens. So even our banquet chef, Chef Davinder, phenomenal. Some of the best. I think one of the best parts of my favorite parts about the job is eating good food all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they keep like impressing me with something new all the time too. So it's so good. But yeah, the restaurant's awesome. We keep having like live bands in there. People come in, have dinners, watch a nice performance, and have a good night. That's coming. We have like DJ nights in there too.
Wow.
So yeah, we flip the space for different types of events.
That's so cool.
So it's really cool. That's where I'm working. I mainly was attracted to it because it flows through to arts. I think like that's like it's like a multicultural center of sorts because you have like so many different people from all walks of life coming in there. And you see the fusion happen. Like you see people mixing and mingling from
Yeah.
all walks of society, and it's awesome to see. But yeah, I just wanted to learn more about this business, and learn more about hospitality. And yeah, it's something that naturally came to me, especially from the background I come with. Like my parents being in, my mom being an actor, my dad being a director, and growing around theater all my life. I was like, I love the arts,
Yeah.
and I like to paint and draw myself. So definitely that was what drew me in, running a place of this magnitude and having the impact on people, more importantly, the way we do, when we do things or have our events in there. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome. That's
yeah.
so cool. So I'll have to come actually visit that place
Yes,
and see it
soon
sometime.
enough. We're getting you on the Happy, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise podcast, my
There
friend.
we go.
So
There we go.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Tell me about your podcast too.
Okay, yeah. So basically, I figured like success leaves clues, right? And what I really wanted to give to the people, like give back into the community, was knowledge,
Yeah.
in simple words. But more importantly, I feel like each of these, like happiness, health, wealth, and then wisdom, each of these kind of accumulatively bring success to your life. You know,
Yeah.
I don't measure success in terms of money or one being skewed like higher direction, the others being low, but like a balance of the four.
Mm.
Like you have to have a balance in happiness. You got to know what cultivates it, or what makes you happy, and then you got to dive into understanding your health. What are your limitations, and what do you do for it, right? And then also the wealth part, like what is your financial literate, how literate are you financially, or
Hmm.
what is your mental or diet in terms of wisdom. So I guess really breaking down for people at different stages in their life and all walks of life, what is their understanding at their experience level of
Mm.
each of these categories. So that's what it really is about.
That's fascinating.
So yeah, cool conversations, much like this.
Yeah.
You dive into some awesome stuff, and you get to know some awesome people, and the world gets to look into this knowledge or advice and words. So that was like the whole idea.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the sake of keeping our runtime short,
Hmm.
I'm not going to break down everything that your immense knowledge of the film industry, although I
Hmm.
know you
Hmm.
have an immense knowledge of the film industry. I want to do another podcast with you about that and
Sure.
about creativity and all
Hmm.
of that, since I know it basically runs in your blood at this point. But this one, I wanted to focus especially on just mindset and a
Okay.
lot of that. Um, and so it's amazing to know that you're doing something very similar, right?
Yeah.
Just teaching people about wisdom. And one of those things that you touched on was measuring success.
Hmm.
And that's something I like to ask everyone about, right? Because I have people on here who maybe are all the way at the bottom of the ladder,
Hmm.
maybe they're all the way at the top, maybe they're somewhere in the middle,
Hmm.
right? And I think every person's story is equally inspiring to someone else,
Yeah.
right? You meet someone, even homeless people that I've met,
Yeah.
they have the most inspiring stories,
Yeah.
and it's fascinating to talk to them. So I just like to highlight all of that. So,
Hmm.
how do you personally in your life measure success?
I think it's the balance of the four,
Hmm.
right? I guess happiness, health, wealth, and wisdom. A balance in those four is what equates to success for me. You gotta have a balance in all four, because a lot of times you'll see super successful people with all the money on the planet super unhappy,
Yeah.
or because they don't have a balance on the happiness side. They haven't taken the time to really understand like what truly makes them happy, like the roles they play in people's lives, family, and all of that. Like I feel it's disproportionate in the sense like to there's this misconception like in order to be something you really want to and you want to have all the money on the planet, you got to sacrifice these other things.
Mm.
But that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of people that I've met who have a balance in all four. Maybe they don't have as much money, but they have it all proportionate and well balanced in all four areas.
Yeah.
So I think that's what really success is about. As long as you are happy and understand how you can cultivate it. As long as you're healthy, like health is real wealth, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are super like successful in terms of money, but then they have super bad health.
Yeah.
They don't take care of themselves, and
Right.
especially in their 20s and their 30s, and then the 40s and 50s are like crap.
Yeah.
So finding a balance there is super super important. Understanding your limitations, what your body, because everybody's different, right?
Hmm.
Every single human body is different. And so really understanding yourself and being um involved, like being present with your health is super key. And then on the other hand, your wealth too. I think it's like that study where if you give a million, like a lot of these lottery winners who had no money have suddenly encountered millions of dollars,
Yeah.
end up killing themselves,
Yeah.
right? It's this crazy study, like, well,
Yeah.
this is what you wanted, why would you do something like that? You have the money,
Right.
right? But a lot of people don't know how to balance that,
Hmm.
right? They don't know how to manage that money, they don't know how to manage their relationships, they don't know how to who to trust and borrow and lend and all. Those are like all
Yeah.
skill sets
Yeah.
that they're not equipped with, right?
Hmm.
So I feel it's intentional. Like making that type of money comes with a certain intentionality and a certain skill set that you're equipped with, right?
Hmm.
So truly understanding how to generate wealth and how to be wealthy. Not I'm not talking about rich. I'm talking about being wealthy.
Yeah.
That can be passed on to the generations, with a balance in these four. Like
Yeah.
in wisdom, right? Wisdom at the end of the day is, I think, as equally important as anything else. Your mental diet really dictates what you do. Like actions. What is it? Actions. No, feelings. Or no, emotions equals. I'm messing this up, but
It's
there's
okay.
something where the way you feel is how you're gonna act.
Mm.
So really understanding wisdom, and getting it from the right people. I think one of the best things you can do for yourself to equip yourself for your success is listening to qualified advice.
Mm.
I'm not gonna go to a person who's made 100 grand in his life to give me advice on how do I make $1 million. It's
Right.
just not gonna work.
Yeah.
So really listening to everybody. That person with the 100 grand is also going to give you advice,
Hmm.
but then really knowing the fact too, like, hey, if I want to get to a million from that 100 grand, like, that's not the advice I got to follow.
Right.
Otherwise, this person would have it too. So yeah, really being conscious of that. And there's awesome stuff. Like I've spoken to different people on these four topics, and they keep coming up with like so many interesting like just thoughts.
Yeah.
and which is why, like, it got me interested in. But that's how I view success. I think as long as you have a balance in all four, and it's replicable, and you can teach it to somebody like your children, or your family members, I think, yeah, that's how you're truly gonna be successful. And even, like, don't get me wrong, I don't mean like, oh yeah, if you're just happy but you're not rich or you're not wealthy, that's not success to me.
Yeah.
You gotta be, it's gotta be all balanced.
Yeah.
You gotta be a good proportion, like it's gotta be a high graph in all four areas. That's how you're truly attaining it, and I feel like some people have already done that, which is really
Oh
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's a really interesting perspective on it too, because like I said, I ask everyone who's on
I
this,
know.
I ask them the same
Yeah.
questions, right? And everyone answers it differently.
Yeah.
And part of that I've found too comes with where they are in life,
Mm-hmm.
and what success would be to them at that point in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, your why changes as you get
Yeah.
older and as you mature and as you encounter the world. Just like that, I think your perception of success also changes as well, which is
Exactly.
just fascinating to me. I love doing these podcasts because it's a chance to talk to some of the most interesting people
Mm-hmm.
about the most interesting topics and see
Yeah.
just kind of what makes people tick. And it's
Yeah,
amazing to me.
but it's right? Like, I don't, like, what got you from point A to point B might not be the thing that gets you from point B to point C, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's evolution is to just constant. I guess as long as you constantly want to learn and grow and, discover yourself, not discover yourself, but like know more about yourself and how you function.
Hmm.
Think you're gonna do all the right things in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So I want to ask you, I think one or two more questions
Sure.
along this line. One is this always kind of comes up in my life. I'm a horrible reader. I
Mm-hmm.
fall asleep when I read.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get better.
Yeah.
I've been going to the library and just getting books and forcing myself to
Uh-huh.
try to read them. Do you read, and do you find that reading is very important or vital, or are there ways around it that you can still get lots of knowledge and wisdom from people without reading?
That's a great question. So like I said, growing up, I was never the kinds to really dial into books,
Yeah.
right? I hated them. I guess for majority of my life, the first time that I actually got into reading was our previous job,
Oh, okay.
because we had like a book club, and I was like, well, if people who are winning are reading, then I should too,
Yeah.
right? Replicate successful people's habits. So I kind of pushed myself to read my first book and really force it down my throat. But then it happened naturally because I understood, like, I like what I'm reading. Like, it's helping me. I can use some of this in my real life, and
Hmm.
this is good. So I guess what I had, my understanding before was like reading is about reading things you don't like, which is like this misconception that I grew up with.
Yeah.
But if I read something that I actually like and I'm interested in, I'll keep reading. I won't pause. When it comes to reading books, sometimes I can feel like they can take up time. Like,
Hmm.
I'd rather listen to a podcast, if I'm being honest, than reading to a book
Hmm.
or reading through a book. Because but then again, like, there's both pros and cons.
Yeah.
You're more dialed in when you're reading the book, than you are when you're listening to the podcast. Because when you're listening to a podcast, it's like a conversation you're having with somebody, right? Where your imagination is going to go in directions that this person is trying to send it in. And then you can get distracted easily,
Yeah.
right? And you're not really taking, your mind is multitasking in some cases. Like, if I'm brushing my teeth and I'm listening to my podcast,
Yeah.
right? I'm like passively involved. I'm not like voluntarily involved
Hmm.
to really grasp, the understanding of it. So it might take me, um, two or three times listening to, what do you call it? Audiobook? Yeah,
Oh,
audiobook.
okay. Yeah.
Yep. It
Hmm.
would take me like two to three times listening to an audiobook
Hmm.
compared to me reading just once. Like, if I read a book one time, it's as good as me listening to three audiobooks, like same
Oh,
book.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, I don't know that I said it out wrong.
No, that's
I'll rephrase it so you can edit it later.
okay.
So basically, if I read a book once, is going to do a bigger impact. If I want the same impact as that through an audiobook, it will take me listening to the same audiobook 3 times or like 2 times.
Okay.
So I whatever I missed out on in the first few times, I can grasp in the other two.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the way I see that. And then yeah, I mean, majority of what I've learned through people, and so I would never say that's bad. Like, don't listen to people, just listen to books, right? Of course, everybody has perspective, but
Mm-hmm.
here's the beauty about life. What I truly believe is there is no right and there's no wrong, right? What I mean is you decide what is right and what is wrong. This life that you've been given comes with the perk of, choosing what is right for you and wrong for you. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
necessarily follow, filters and limitations.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, really figuring it out. I think any knowledge is good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of it might be like bad advice or whatever it is, but you'll know it's bad advice because now you're equipped to understand what's right and what's wrong. So you
Right.
determine what's right and what's wrong is what I'm trying to say basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Being
Um,
able to be self-aware and filter
yeah,
through the
yeah.
information.
Because for like the whole topic of religion, right? Can we can go on for like days and hours and talk about like Christianity, Islam, or
Yeah.
Hinduism, whatever it is. But that's just a person's belief. Like they've determined like this is right. This person has belief there. This person believes they're right. So like they're
Mm-hmm.
both right for themselves and believing what they want to. There's no wrong, which is why like people really decide what's right. So you have that. Sometimes we forget. Like we're the ones at the end of the day to really determine what's right and what's wrong. Sometimes we just forget that,
Yeah.
and it's important to know that.
Yeah. The ability to make choices
Yep.
is very important.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Okay. And then, man, I had another really good question for you, and it's gone from my memory right now. Um, Let me think. There's something else I wanted to touch on. Oh, inspiration. So, where you are in life now, um, who is your biggest inspiration, or what is your biggest inspiration?
My biggest inspiration. It's actually really layered too, in the
Okay.
sense that I find my inspiration from a lot of different things and people, right? When it comes to people, I think my big inspiration has been my grandfather, his journey to becoming a writer. My father, knowing his background and how he became what he became. My mom, who didn't really educate herself in acting but is a phenomenal actor, and her journey, or even my personal one. Like there have been so many battles, time and time again, that just prove to me that I'm made of a different metal, and if I really want something, no matter what, I'm gonna go and get it. Best belief.
That's
There's
awesome.
no other
Yeah.
way about it, right?
Yeah.
I believe it's happened so many times that it's given me the confidence and conviction now that you can hear in my voice too when I say like, no, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. Um, so I think yeah, that's yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No, that does.
those that's been, and
Yeah.
then yeah, apart from that inspiration, I mean yeah, quotes, wisdom, listening to the right people, sometimes listening to stories from people about their journeys.
Hmm.
um, but yeah, there's inspiration everywhere. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of it, I'm really, really fortunate to have it around me in my, environment. So yeah, something I'm grateful for.
That just cued me for what I wanted to talk to you about. You said something multiple times now throughout this podcast, and I
Mm-hmm.
really just want you to kind of talk a little bit about it.
Mm-hmm.
Your environment influences you.
Mm-hmm.
Who you have around you, your friends, your family, your whoever it is,
Yeah.
right? Your peers, the people you surround yourself with
Mm-hmm.
are going to influence you, and
Yeah.
they're going to have a huge influence on
Yep.
you. And that will, in large part, steer where you go
Yep.
financially, emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
everything, right?
Everything.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. It's that old saying, right? tell me who you hang out with and I'll tell you your future, or if you hang out with three millionaires, good chance you'll be the fourth. They both kind of say the same thing, right? Your influence, we are all products of our environments, right? We are the way we are because of who we're surrounded by at all given times. And that can change over time,
Hmm.
right? Like, say, for example, when I was back in my boarding school in India, I was surrounded by my group of friends. So I was a lot like them, right?
Yeah.
And that rubbed off on me. And then when I came to America, then I had a different group of friends. We were soccer players or whatever. That kind of rubbed off on me, and I was more like them. And then I met somebody then I made my college best friends from Spain and Scotland, and they were kind of different, so that rubbed off on me. And then eventually, I got surrounded by all these winners. So that kind of rubbed off on me and gave me a crazy good foundation and really directed me in a positive life that I really want to live. So yeah, it changes over time, like who you hang out with and what you do and your circle of influence. But it's the one of the most important things. Um, there's one thing, right, that's happened in my life. I think it happens in most people's life. Like, just the way the universe works
Hmm.
is that whatever you believe in, God, higher power, whatever, they'll keep trying to teach you the same lesson over and over till you get it,
Hmm.
right? And there were times that I was around the wrong influence people. Like, I was influenced by the wrong people, and then I was expecting something else out of having those relationships. I was expecting to be good,
Yeah.
but that bad influence is not going to get me good results, right? And then I transitioned to a good one. The good one helped me a little bit, but then I went back to the bad one. And like,
Hmm.
there have been moments like that. So um, I feel, yes, it has one of the biggest impacts you can imagine. You can't be a winner hanging around losers,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Because at some point or the other is going to rub off. How, not a loser, I think that's too hard a word and that sounds super judgmental. I would not judge somebody. I'd rather be curious. But in general, like somebody who's not getting the outcomes you want in your life or one shot at life that you have, um, you're probably gonna end up closer to what their, whatever their energy is or whatever they're living with in that moment. That's
Hmm.
probably gonna be your, future. So super, super conscious of that. There's always times, I keep letting go of some people in my life because I
Mm.
feel like it's not serving me. And then there are some people I would rather be with that serve me. And then there are some people I want to be with, but I can't because I yet haven't reached. There's, that brings up another interesting conversation, which was, I think it was, again, Alex Hermosi and one other person having it. And they said something like, there's this transitional phase where it gets super lonely, right?
Mm.
And this phase is right after you've decided to change, which is super difficult to do, and change your environment, and it's right before you find the right set of people that you want around you.
Wow.
Right? There's this
Yeah.
this transitional thing that happens, and it's like a super lonely part. And I feel like I've kind of almost crossed that lonely part where now I have really good people around in my life,
Yeah.
and I've kind of let go of the old ones, and it's serving me. So yeah, that's like a big thing.
Yeah.
So
That's so
yeah,
true.
yeah,
That's something you don't think about,
yeah.
but
You don't think about much, but that's vital,
yeah.
if anything.
And I think that that also is why it's so scary to change too, right?
It is.
It's you're like, okay, but I'm comfortable here. I don't like the people. I know they're not helping me. They're not helping me grow, and they're not making me better.
Yeah,
They're not challenging me, but I'm comfortable, and you don't want to really
yeah.
sacrifice that.
It's like when people say change is the only constant, they mean it in like a business sense and everything.
Hmm.
And when I say change is the only constant, I mean this. Like, these type of changes are the hardest ones. They're
Yeah.
much harder than anything else. But then those are also like, the battles. If you win those, they'll bring the most the like they'll show you a side of you never knew existed.
Yeah.
and they'll give you results that you're trying to look for. You
Yeah.
know, you won't feel as bad about yourself or however you want to look at it. But yeah, I think that's super super key. I think change is the best thing that can happen to you. So constantly put yourself in environments that change you, that challenge you, that help you get better.
Yeah.
I guess the pursuit of life is just chasing the best version of you every single day, right? That's where we're all trying to
Yeah.
get to eventually. Because the best version of yourself will have all the money, will you'll have all the wisdom, will have all the health, all the happiness, all the right people. Everything is gonna
Yeah.
go right if as long as you chase the best version of yourself. So I think yeah, that's why change is super super key.
That's so profound. I love that.
Yeah.
I just want to kind of let that live where it is. So shifting to kind of your goals.
Hmm.
What are you looking at in the future? What does your next year look like? What does your next 5 years look like? Where do you want to be?
Okay. So
Very interview question. Sorry.
yeah, no problem. The immediate goal, something I'm working on that I've put on my plate as a challenge, is getting the podcast out and running, right?
Nice.
And that's a learning curve too. There's a lot of things I didn't understand before that now I can course correct as I'm going about it. So that's one big thing that I'm trying to get out, and I want to interview like as many people and branch this into like a much bigger tree.
Yeah.
I have visions of doing like merch like I'm wearing right now. you
Oh,
know
nice.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to do merch so I can like sell these things, and then a certain part of these proceeds go to charities that I like or I want to
Okay.
work with in the
Nice.
future. So that's one, and then there's interviewing people, and then like I'm like, oh, what is it, like the guy who goes around like the rich people and asking them questions like, oh, you're a millionaire,
Oh, yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what's like an advice you can give, so something like that. So I want to do the same thing for
Okay.
happy healthy wise. So I want to do it for that. So those are some of the things I'm working on while I'm doing this crazy amount of workload at work,
Yep. Yep.
especially during like the prime season in hospitality these months, with proms and weddings and shows and concerts going on.
Yep.
So that's that. And then one of my goals in the near future I'm looking at is to get into an MBA. I've been speaking about the MBA for a while now. It's just I've taken my time because I'm trying to do it in a certain area, which I feel is going to be the most impactful and dominant in the coming years. Like how internet was in the 2000s, now we have artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
So something in that realm.
So you want? Do you
Um,
know what you
so
want your master's to be in
yeah, so in that
specifically?
area of
Okay.
artificial intelligence, but then as artificial intelligence is evolving, the same way these programs are evolving too.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure, like, I have a certain understanding. I don't want to speak it out loud, but I have a certain understanding of how this is molding everything. And there are some places that are coming out with the right masters,
Okay.
so that will be good. So that's something I'm working on as well. And then apart from that, I think long term visions, there's plenty, right? There's this on my phone, I have my goal card, right? So just so people can see it, let me just clear everything out. All these people that don't need to talk to right now. Okay, so like say for example this goal card, right?
Oh, nice. So you have
So
that as your
as my
screensaver.
screensaver. So
Wow. Okay.
I just curated something quickly on Canva and just
Mm-hmm.
put it all together. But yeah, looking at my goal card, some of the things are owning certain amount of shares in Chelsea Football Club, which is my favorite club.
Okay.
Having season tickets to it, and flying out to watch them whenever. Owning a 458 Italia Ferrari, that's like
Nice.
my favorite Ferrari of all time. Hopefully, by the time I do get them, they don't have too many miles on them, or
Yeah.
find one with low
Yeah.
miles. The other car would be an R34 GTR Skyline,
Okay.
a
Nice.
Godzilla. That would be, oh my God, that would be amazing. So those two are big. Then I want to have, multiple businesses. So in many different types of businesses. One that I'm working on was going to be in healthcare. One's going to be in education. One's going to be in, the world of hospitality, which I'm kind
Okay.
of grasping right now.
Yeah.
So those are like three prime, like the big businesses I'm gonna have, and then there's multiple, branches of that. Um, so that's that, and then apart from that, What else do I have here on my goal card? Yeah, meeting Messi. Messi is
There you
like
go.
my biggest inspiration. So
Wow.
when I got diagnosed with diabetes, I was in the ICU for like a couple of days, maybe a week or so. During that entire time, the only thing that kept me going and motivated was Messi. And like,
Mm,
watching his videos and like thinking of him playing and things like that.
yeah.
So yeah, Messi is like, I think I'll cry. Like when he won the World Cup, I remember crying for like 3 days or something. And I yet to date
Wow.
like celebrated his victory in the World Cup. So Messi is
Yeah.
something that stays super close to my heart.
That's amazing.
So meeting him in person, spending like a good amount of time with him, like a lunch, dinner, understanding his mindset too. Like I want to dial
Yeah.
into that
That would be amazing.
because he truly, truly inspires me. The way he's lived, being the athlete of his stature, and then staying away from media or like having minimal media presence is insane,
Hmm.
almost
Yeah.
impossible. And then doing everything that he's done, it's just nuts. That's one, and then yeah, there's other businesses too. I might want to do something in the gin industry.
Okay.
That's something too that comes from me watching Peaky Blinders.
Yep. Yep.
I wouldn't say like, oh, I'm so stupid that I watch Peaky Blinders, now I want a gin company, but it just got me interested in gin and how it's made. And, I
Yeah.
did my research about it and I was interested in it. I'm like, oh, this is a cool thing. Like, so I might even do that. And then, owning a bunch of homes, um, some mainly for my parents,
Yeah.
giving them like nice mansions and villas, and then having like a decent size place for myself, nothing too fancy, too crazy, like 50 bedrooms and 80,
Oh
like
my gosh.
bathrooms,
Yeah.
nothing like that. But something I feel like I'm at home,
Yeah.
like tranquility, peace, all those things. Like I can
Yeah.
just, not worry about the world. So yeah, I think those are some of the, goals I'm working on, some in the near future, and then like some long term that I'm
Wow.
working towards. So
That's
there's a
amazing.
bunch.
Big goals, big
Yeah,
goals. I love
100%.
that.
Yep.
So I want to ask you about this because I've asked other people about it and I completely forgot to. You have you call it an inspiration card, is that right?
Goal card.
Goal card.
Yeah.
So I've always known them as like vision boards,
Yes,
right?
vision boards.
Same idea, I
Same.
think, right? Okay. Can you talk a little bit about vision boards and how
Yes.
important it is to have a vision board
It is
and look at it every day?
it is crazy how it works. But there's this, do you know who Shah Rukh Khan is?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so Shah Rukh Khan has a famous dialogue in a movie. I won't say that dialogue because it's in Hindi.
Okay.
But basically, if I have to translate it, and my understanding of it is basically the universe will convolute with you to get what you truly truly want at the end of the day, as long as you desire it fully. um, and then if you don't get it, then it's not the end.
Hmm.
The movie is yet to finish. I've done a really bad translation of it, but it's beautifully said in
Yeah.
Hindi. um, but yeah, where I'm going with this is basically that, yeah, I got introduced to it through Steve Harvey. So
Mm.
Steve Harvey, while he shoots his show and everything, he also has some BTS, like behind the scenes, where he
Hmm.
does a lot of motivational stuff, and he'll speak about things he wants to pass on to the people, like kind of like give back. So he did one about vision boards and
Mm.
goal cards, and he said that he's spoken to a bunch of billionaires and millionaires, and all of them do it. So
Yeah.
again, right? Success leaves clues, and it's replicable. So I tried replicating that. So there was this one exercise that I would recommend anybody to watch it on YouTube. So I did that exercise, and then there was one day where I did another one, which is like, again, he kind of breaks it down where you list about a total of 100, the first 15 to 20 should be kind of easy, and then it gets difficult.
Mm.
But then you keep going on list and list, and like all the little details too, right?
Yeah.
And then you start building your vision board, and then you start putting things. So it just, it's so crazy, right? I don't know the scientific breakdown of this whole analysis, but the way it worked for me is I tried doing that. I remember, Messi was one of like the first things that came to happen, and then this was before Messi agreed to come to the MLS or
Mm.
even there were any
Yeah.
sorts of conversations. And then, that happened. And then, even Chelsea's thing, I remember, saying like watching my first Chelsea game by myself, right?
Yeah.
And Chelsea was coming to Chicago. And then Messi goes to Inter Miami, and he keeps coming to Chicago now,
Yeah.
where I can watch him. So, I mean, those are like the little ones, but then
Yeah.
there's so many other big, profound ones too. Like I remember doing a sales goal, like, in 2 months, I want to hit a certain amount of number, and I did that. And when I transitioned to this job, and, hitting a certain amount in the first 4 or 5 months, and I did over that. So I think anything that you put pen to paper when it comes to goals
Yep.
kind of lingers in the forefront of your mind and your subconscious. And I feel like your mind, both consciously and subconsciously, is kind of working towards the same stuff, which is why the more probability of those things happening. Now,
Mm-hmm.
of course, like some things that, like say Messi, for example, like that's not in my control,
Yeah.
right? I had nothing to do with it. But at the same time, like the fact that I believed in something like that happening, where I get to do that, tells me that yes, like these things work.
Yeah.
There is some mental craziness or madness behind all of this, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it works, and it has worked for me time and time again. There's a million things that I could mention that have happened that I listed on my like goals. Um, Even like something as small as not small but super big for me, attending my best friend's wedding or something like that. Just going back home, because at the time I thought the possibility would be insane. I don't think I'll be able to do it. Somehow things worked out and it worked in my favor, and I was like, whoa! Like I was
Yeah.
supposed to get a visa stamped or something, and the only time frame was around the wedding, and I ended up going to it, and I was like, whoa! So
Wow.
there's so many endless examples. But yeah, I think Steve Harvey is a good starting point. Um, I know there's people who have different practices,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think that's like a good starting point, Steve Harvey, and then they can do their own studies. And there's like many different studies on vision boards and goal cards.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're both helpful. They
Yeah.
at least work for me. I don't
That's
know about
amazing.
other people. I don't know if it will work for them, but it works for me.
Yeah, I have not encountered someone yet who actually did it,
Okay.
made a vision board and everything,
Yeah.
and it failed.
Yeah.
Every single
Yeah.
time
True.
they're like, yeah, I did this and it happened. I did
Yep.
this and it happened.
Yep.
And I listen to a lot of podcasts about success and
Yeah.
about, striving to make more and more money or have more whatever the success is, right?
Right.
And no matter who they interview,
Mm-hmm.
anyone who talks on these podcasts about success and
Mm-hmm.
is qualified enough to talk about
Mm-hmm.
success talks about vision boards and
Yeah.
visualizing your goals.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they don't have a strict vision board, like there was one guy that's like, you write out a sentence, I am, let's say, good at
The I
sales.
am sentences, yes,
Yeah.
those are really good. Yeah.
And you write those out and you read them every day, right when you wake up. And he said, you go 2-3 weeks, you're not going to feel anything. You're going to be like, why am I doing this? This is stupid.
Yeah.
He said, say it to yourself in the mirror, though.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're seeing yourself say it and
Yeah.
you're visualizing it. And it's all these different mental tricks that we play on ourselves.
Yes.
And if you're doing it anyway, we're talking to ourselves throughout the day all the
Mm-hmm.
time. We're telling ourselves stories. I'm not good enough. I am good enough. I'm going to be
Uh-huh.
good at this. Today I'm going to eat a bagel. Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And at the end, that happens because you're telling yourself what you're going to do throughout the day. So if you just change the script of what you're telling yourself, all of
Yes.
a sudden you're going to see all these successful things
Yep.
happening and you're not going to
Yep.
know why. And it's all because you're literally manipulating your own brain to do the right thing,
Yep.
which is just profound to me.
100%. I think shout out to Benny G and Kenny.
Yeah.
Both of them, they really ingrained this into me. Was the most important conversation you have every single day is with yourself,
Yeah.
your mental dialogue, your mental diet. So be super conscious about what you say to yourself. Especially, Kenny, I remember used to say like, um, if somebody, an actual human, told me the stuff I tell myself, I would literally punch him in the face, which is so true,
Yeah.
right? So then why do we do it to ourselves?
Right.
So be super cautious of what you tell yourself, one, and then what you feed it. And then I feel like, yeah, as long as you're telling yourself like, reaffirming that, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and you're letting your brain like go off and like, yes, you're motivating yourself in a way. I feel
Mm-hmm.
that kind of, I don't know what is it that works. I would love to sit down
Yeah,
and really break it down,
the
or
neuroscience
talk to
of it.
somebody who understands it better than I do, to really like dig into that, because I'm
Yeah.
a geek for such
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, mental dialogue is really really big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so I want to wrap this up. Last thing, I just want you to tell people where they can learn more about you, about your podcast, about where you work, all of that different things. Kind of put in a
Perfect.
plug for
Perfect.
yourself.
Okay. So to begin with, you can find my Instagram handle, which is Faizi Salim one. And then you can find my podcast channel, the Happy, Healthy, Wealthy, Wise podcast, on Instagram as well. I'll give you some links that you can post.
Perfect.
But yeah, so you can find me there. If there's any questions, I would love to talk to anybody and help anybody, share my stories, my journey. Of course, there's a lot that has not even come to light
Yeah.
in this interview, but we'll save it for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how you can reach me. And then also the Matrix Club. I think, we do a lot of different things there, especially for people around Illinois. That's like a really good place to consider for, events or anything that you're thinking of, really, right from podcasts to events to, concerts to movies or whatever it is. So it's a fun space to work in and do things in. And then, yeah, that's pretty much all there is. But yeah, nothing else to really plug.
Cool. Cool. All right. Awesome. So I'm gonna ask you. We'll wrap up with just 5 random questions.
Yes, 5 randoms.
Um,
Let's do it.
Okay, so I kind of talked a little bit about this a minute ago. Basically, I challenge at the end of the podcast, I challenge everyone to answer 5 questions in under 60 seconds.
Okay.
It started with, unfairly, it started with like 10, and then I narrowed it down to like 8
Okay.
and whatever, because people were like
Just
just
don't
getting
ask me
blown out of
which
the
was the
water.
highest grossing movie this year.
Perfect. I won't do that. And I reformed these to not be the racist versions. So we've got that. But I have 5 random questions for you generated by ChatGPT. All right.
Okay.
You ready?
No.
We're going to start in 3, 2, 1. If your alarm clock could speak motivational quotes every morning, what's the first thing you'd want it to say?
Don't wish it was easy. Wish you were better. Don't wish for less skills. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills to solve them.
That's awesome. Okay. What's one goal you've set that even you think is kind of outrageous, but you're still going for it?
The healthcare idea that I had for, the vision for diabetes care and all of those things.
Okay.
I think that's a big one.
If your podcast suddenly turned into a reality show, what would it be called?
It would be called the same, Happy, Healthy, Wealthy, Wise.
There you go. What would you rather have a business? Oh, would you rather have a business meeting while skydiving or while running a marathon?
Running a marathon, because I want to enjoy the skydiving experience. And marathon, I mean, I'm used to running because I used to run quite a bit back in school. So yeah, I mean, I could do a meeting during running. It's not the most fun, and I'm looking at ways to while time away while I'm running. So meeting is fine.
Perfect. Okay. If success had a theme song every time you walked into a room, what song would play?
Get Out My Way. There's a song. I'll have to find out the artist, but yeah.
Okay,
there's a
perfect.
song.
All right. Well, there you go. Almost in a minute.
Almost okay. Perfect.
But you gave great answers, so
Okay.
I think that outweighs
Awesome.
the minute part.
Okay.
All right. Well, anyway, for all of you listening at home or watching this, thank you so much for watching this. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. There's also a link in the description here to support the channel and to support this podcast as a whole. So please go ahead and click on that. I think you can give like $1. Anything does anything for this at this point. Very ground stages. Please check out all of Fez's stuff. That will also be linked below. He's an amazing guy. We're definitely going to have you back.
For
We
sure, I
have
would
so
love to.
much more to unpack.
Man, the pleasure is mine. Any conversation with you is always awesome, and you're a great, great human. I'm super happy for everything that you're doing, and you kind of inspired me to keep going and doing these amazing things too. So, yeah, don't ever think that whatever you do and you're asking your is ever taken for granted by any means. And yeah, I look forward to doing more of this and having you on my podcast too, since I look up to you as well.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem,
That's
man.
very
Appreciate
meaningful
you.
coming from you.
Got you.
All right. And thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have a great rest of your week.